amazing speakers who are all both coming from South Africa. First, we'll have Zintle Kobeni de Lange. She is a project and fundraising director of the Great People of South Africa, an organization that advocating for gender justice, for the equal and quality access to justice system for victims of violence and abuse. It also provides human rights education and eradication of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. But obviously, you will hear more from Zindli herself. So I would like to give a spot to Zindli to present herself and tell her story.
Well, thank you so much, Saida, and a very good afternoon to everyone that is present here today. You know, it is said that social entrepreneurs bring innovative ideas into the world that change it for the better. But, being a change maker requires, grit, idealism, and so much dedication. And with that said, I want to take this opportunity and greet everyone in the name of love, freedom, and prosperity. May we all continue to be blessed. My name is Zintle Kobeni Dilanga, as Saida has already introduced me. And well, I never had any plans to be a social entrepreneur. Mine really was to help people in the marginalized communities with a special focus on, women, girls, the LGBTQIA plus community, and of course, people living with disabilities. It is such an honor for me to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I look forward to an interesting and an educational session with all of you. Molweni. I'm a young Black woman, that's born and living in South Africa. And this is one of the most unsafest countries in the world for women to live in. In South Africa, every 3 hours, a woman is either raped or killed. Earlier on, when I was reading the concept note that was shared to us by the Y2Y team, it spoke about how South Africa was a country with a government that was committed to social, economic and political transformation and development of our country. However, as a young woman and particularly a Black woman in South Africa, I want to disagree with this. Yes, in writing, it says so. That's what our government says. But in actual reality, for us people, young people on the ground, for us women on the ground in this country, we are experiencing a total opposite of what they say that they want to do. One thing about our country and our government is that we've got incredible policies. However, there is a lack of implementation, which then makes everything else, quite null and void because there's absolutely no action taking place to ensure that the people, the citizens of this country, are living a dignified life. So, there are two dates that really changed my entire life and ultimately led to the social justice activist that I am today. And that would be the 14th of February and the 27th of June 2015. It was a gang rape as well as a sexual assault that resulted in the work that I do today, and I guess the woman that I am today in society and in South Africa at large. I became a human rights activist because my own human rights, were violated. And so that is also how the Great People of South Africa organization was born. This is an organization that Saida has already highlighted to everyone here. We are a women-led NPO that advocates for women and girls' rights, the LGBTQIA+, as well as disability rights. We advocate for women's economic empowerment, for access to mental health care facilities, as well as the equal and quality access to the criminal justice system, with a particular focus on gender-based violence and femicide victims and survivors. It was therefore going to be without a doubt that myself, as Zintle Kobeni Delanga now, the main focus of this organization would be in marginalized, poor, and working class communities where most of this violence that I myself have experienced was taking place. Together with my incredible team of young and innovative women, and well, we have one man, the thorn amongst the roses, we have been on the ground tackling various social issues from poverty to crime, mental health issues, gender-based violence, unemployment, climate justice. And we have been doing this with so much tenacity and grit. And I'm extremely proud of my team, because without my team, I would not have these kind of amazing and great opportunities. So all of these issues that we have been, advocating for in these communities, they are also the contributing factors to the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. It's a human right violation. This is what the United Nations has also said. Now, social entrepreneurship is about bringing life, or rather to life, innovative ideas that really do address all these social challenges that I've mentioned. Therefore, gender based violence, community legal empowerment and development, including youth empowerment, are all interconnected. They are all married to each other. You cannot speak about the one and not, speak about the other. So, our efforts to eradicate all forms of violence across the globe. This is not just about South Africa, because what is happening in South Africa is also happening to other countries as well. What women experience in South Africa is what women experience in Arabic countries, in America, in Europe. We highlight South Africa because right now the focus is on South Africa. So in order for us to ensure that all these efforts lead to, human rights protection and promotion, and ultimately increase women's economic opportunities, because women need to participate in economic opportunities. Women need to start their own businesses. Women need to be independent, because for women that experience violence, these are most women that we have worked with, we have come face to face with, they struggle to leave abusive environments simply because they are dependent on their abuser. They need to eat at the end of the day. So we need to ensure that we empower women, or rather we work as quick as possible on innovative ideas, more innovative ideas that will ensure that these women and their children are able to escape these environments. In fact, to make sure that these women and their children don't even find themselves in environments that are abusive and violate their human rights. Therefore, economic empowerment is absolutely very, very crucial in helping us to deal with all these other challenges that I have mentioned, particularly for women. And this includes women living with disabilities, because they themselves also experience so much violence. But because of the stigma that is around living with disability, it makes it so difficult for them to be able to speak out. We need to make sure that in whatever we do, we include people living with disability, and particularly in this case, women that are living with disabilities. So over the past 3 years, my team and I, we have facilitated 3 community-based paralegal training programs. We have designed this program to ensure that we empower women with basic legal skills. These are skills that in turn they have continued to use in their own respective communities. So what we do is we have different women coming from different communities, particularly within the Western Cape province. We have 8 identified here within the Cape Metro. We have 8 identified GBV hotspots. So our focus started there. So we get these women from these marginalized communities where this violence is so rife. If you guys could come and see, then you would know what I am exactly talking about. I actually prefer for people to come and have a look, to be on the ground, and I can show you and say, have a look at this. And these women can tell you their own stories. So this is where they are from. So we put them through this vigorous, a well put together training program. It's a paralegal training program where they get to be taught about basic legal skills, the Constitution, what democracy means. We put them back in their communities and we give them stipends on a monthly basis. So we have given them skills, and now we have given them an opportunity to be able to make some money and be able to put food on their tables. And not only that, but because we put them back in the community, a community which they're so well familiar with, they're able to be the first respondent to any human rights violations. So what these women have been doing, they have been helping other women to access citizenship, for an example. We have a huge issue of that. And I think with one of our funders, when we raised these issues, it was like something that no other organization has ever raised before. And we said, a lot of women, including their children, they are unable to escape these human rights violating circumstances because they don't have citizenship. So if you don't have an ID document, it means that as a mother, your children don't have birth certificate. If they don't have birth certificate, it means that they're not having access to social security services such as social grant, which means that poverty in this particular household continues to be on the rise. So this is what one of the things that these well-trained community-based paralegals have been able to do. They respond swiftly to gender-based violence. We do the most work, more than the police actually do, because what now has happened, because these community-based paralegals are based in their own communities, if there is any kind of human right violation that takes place, we are their first contact. They let us know before they let the police know, because there's a break of trust and relationship between communities and the police, which also takes us to the issue of why so many women, why so many children, why ordinary South Africans are not reporting crime, because the police are criminals themselves, and that is just the reality. So this is what we have been doing with these very well-trained community-based paralegals. We give them skills, and then we give them economic opportunities so that we can break the chain of human rights violations. So our ultimate goal, obviously, with this particular project of training these women, is to have at least one paralegal in each and every community, street by street. So we have a lot of work to do on our hands, because we believe that now more than ever, paralegal or legal empowerment is critical to address systematic changes or injustices, in order for us to be able to also advocate for expanded protection under the law. So community legal empowerment, really, as we were doing our work, it kept coming up. It kept coming up because what we realize is that when people know what the law is and what it means and how they are supposed to benefit from the law, particularly people who are living in a constitutional democracy such as South Africa, you will experience the most amazing thing with these communities. You teach them, you allow them to run their own things, because what we want to do, or what we keep on saying as an organization, is that we don't want to always be giving and giving and giving. We must empower people so that they can be self-sustaining. They can be able to do their own things. This is also where our other projects of food gardening comes in, because we cannot go to the communities, and I tell this to the communities all the time. We cannot come and give food to you all the time. You must be able to make or create your own food, which then will obviously address the issue of poverty, right? So that is what we have been doing. Now, over the past couple of days, myself, I have been really observing the COP27 Summit on Climate Change. And I wanted to bring this up because really I have just been, because the other day I actually had an opportunity as well of attending another climate, gender justice and climate, and, trying to find ways on how we can get women involved in the issue of climate justice. And I was looking at this COP27, I said, I need to, monitor this and just find out what it is that I can learn, and obviously take it back to the communities. It's also very important that whatever we learn, and I say this to my team all the time, whatever we learn, if it's good, we take it back to the community so we can teach them, because most of them, there's also another issue, they don't have access to information, even though this is a constitutional right. So we need to, whatever we learn, whatever skill we learn, no matter how small you may think it is, we definitely need to take it back to the community and make sure that we teach them. So I've been obviously following up and listening, and I've heard a lot of speakers speaking or reiterating the importance of us intensifying efforts on how we can prevent climate change. And it's so amazing and incredible, actually, not in a very good way, that we're always talking about what can we do to change this, what can we do to prevent climate change. And I feel personally, that is all this what these global leaders are saying, particularly from very rich countries. What can we do? What can we do? And yet they are the ones who are actually contributing more to climate change, and countries such as, or continents such as Africa, we are only contributing tiny bit. For example, us in South Africa, we don't even have electricity, so we're not even producing electricity, which would then contribute to pollution, air pollution, and all. We're not, but we are the ones who are actually going to experience the most heartache and the most horrific experiences once climate change is on a roll and there's nothing else we can do to stop it. So we really need to work very, very hard on not just talking, but putting things into action. And I really hope that maybe if I'd had an opportunity to be at the COP27, I would have just told all these global leaders that keep telling us, you need to do this, and yet they are the ones that are not doing much to ensure that we prevent climate change. The thing about climate change, I want to bring this up because it is so, so, so important, because I don't know, maybe tomorrow here in Cape Town, we might have floods, in and we won't be able, maybe you won't see me because maybe I would have drowned or something like that. But I want this, because I know that this will be online. I want everyone who will have an opportunity to look at this say that Uzinhle did mention that we need to do more to prevent climate change, simply because climate change, we're talking about human rights here, right? We're talking about women empowerment, right? We've been talking about the environment and all of that stuff, economic justice. We have been talking about that. But once climate change hits us and it's so severe, all these human rights will literally be null and void. All of these summits that we are holding and hosting, all the discussions that we're having, it would be as if it was a waste of time for all of us, because first of all those human rights that we are trying to make sure that we are protecting and promoting, we won't be able to enjoy them. Nobody will be able to enjoy them, because first of all, poverty will be on a high. We are going to go hungry. Drought, we're going to be so thirsty. Just here in Cape Town a few years ago, we had a campaign, day zero. We had no water, but people continue to waste water. There continues to be less awareness being done by the government, to say, listen, you need to do this and this and that to make sure that we do not run out of water. So gender-based violence is also going to be on the increase. Mortality rate, sexual violence. There's just going to be a lot. Everything that we're trying to speak about and trying to find innovative ways on how we can, be able to prevent, and if we're not preventing, how we can be able to respond efficiently when a problem arises. I'm telling you now, everything's going to be on a high, and we are going to struggle to put, or rather to get our lives back on track once all of that happens. So it's very, very important that when we leave this platform, after all these wonderful discussions have taken place, we go back to our respective communities and we try to intensify our efforts on how we can prevent climate change. Climate change is going to ruin everything if we don't prevent it. So I don't know how I can further express how important this is. But I guess the fact that we're having these discussions and that all of us are on this platform, we are young people, we are innovative people, and I'm glad that we're getting an opportunity to engage with one another. And I hope that this won't just end here. Going forward, we will continue to engage with each other to find ways on how we can save our planet. Without the planet, there's really nothing. There's really nothing that's going to happen. There's nothing that we can do, because the planet won't exist and we live in this planet. It is our responsibility. You don't have to wait for Zinhle to say, Saida, do this, Kitumezi, do that. You must take it upon yourself and say, what can I do as a young person, as a young woman, as a man, as a member of the LGBTQI, as a person living, what can I do to make sure that we prevent this climate change? Because obviously the destruction of our planet, like I said, it will just make sure, it will render everything just null and void. All these efforts that we're making to engage on these very important topics will really be null and void. Now, since we've been talking about human rights here on these platforms, I wanted to say that the anticipated climate disaster, like I said already, will definitely increase violence, as well as diseases. I wanted to mention the issue of diseases, because if there's going to be an increase in gender-based violence, it means, and sexual violence especially, it means a lot of people will be experiencing, there will be no condoms, there will be nothing, which means we are looking at the risk of HIV being on an increase. And that's just one of the diseases that really in Africa we're really struggling with. One day the rates are low, and then the next day are 10 times higher. So we need to intensify efforts on ensuring that, we look at the issue of this very much. I think it just goes back to the issue of climate change. So I wanted to ask, in fact, also the youth, those people who will then have an opportunity to watch this presentation, maybe in a month's time or in a week's time, to say that as young people, we have such a huge responsibility on our shoulders, and we need to take that responsibilities and actually maybe take the baton from other young people, especially here in South Africa, who really gave up their lives to ensure that we are able to live in this constitutional democracy. We are able to vote. We're able to, access all these human rights. We owe it to them, because they paved the way for us. They played such a huge role in ending apartheid. They were on the ground. So for us as young people in South Africa to just sit back, relax, and watch everything crumbling down, we are failing them. And those young people who gave up, they are like our ancestors. We need to appease them. We need to make sure that we are taking the baton from them and we're running with it, and we're doing what is right to ensure that our country is in good state, to ensure that our planet is also in a good state, so that we can continue to live, a dignified life, I guess. for those who are currently living that life right now in South Africa. So you want to continue to enjoy the perks. So you need to get, you need to do the work. It doesn't come free. So we definitely need to obviously do what needs to be done. And so I want to say that, as a woman in South Africa and as a young woman, as a youth in South Africa, I myself personally have the highest confidence in our young people. We've got some very, very intelligent young people here in South Africa. And what I want to say is that we have an opportunity here to shape, our future, thus changing the social, economic, climate, and political direction of our country, which our country has taken over the past 23 years of the 28 years of democracy that we have had. So as a youth, we definitely have a critical role to play in strengthening the existing mechanisms towards promoting all these sustainable development goals. We truly have a potential to change our political trajectory as well. Because whether we like it or not, and I say this a lot to young people, whether we like it or not, everything is political. Whether you want to get involved or not get involved, everything is political. So you might as well just get in there on the mud and just, try and do what it is that you can do to make sure that the situation is a little bit better. The youth must start actively participating in politics. That is why I wanted to bring up this point, to say that everything that we have talked about over the years, over the months, young people must start actively participating in politics. Like I said, everything is politics. So if you are actively participating, then you are in there. You have the power and the what word am I looking for? The influence to change, policies, to contribute to policy designs, and to make sure that these policies are implemented and monitored to ensure that they are being effective and serving the people who need them to work for the most. And these are usually people who are marginalized and are really, really living the poorest of the poorest lives. We have such a huge role to play as the young people. I believe so. And I always mention the youth of 1976. There was an uprising here in South Africa in 1976 on the 16th of June. We always celebrate Youth Day to say that those young people, they could see that there was a problem. They went faced on the face to face with the problem, and they resolved the problem. Hence, I said earlier, they contributed in the abolishment of the apartheid, so that people, particularly people of color in this country, can be able to live a dignified life. So we, as the young people of South Africa, we are definitely who we have been waiting for. We are the ethical leaders that we have always yearned for within our political system. We go back to the issue of young people having to participate in politics, actively participating, which means you go out there and you vote, you cast your vote, because this is a right that so many people gave up their lives for. Everything we're saying and everything we're talking, it boils down to the protection and promotion of human rights. A human right, which is a voting right, is a basic human right that you have, and therefore you need to exercise that right. So we are also the leaders that, respect the rule of law as well. We spoke about gender-based violence. I speak about gender-based violence all the time. We need to respect the rule of law. And we are those leaders, isn't it? I'm talking about it right now. It means that I understand what it means to respect the rule of law. Therefore, I need to actively participate in politics so that I can ensure that our constitutional democracy is forever upheld, and that people who are involved in criminal, corrupt activities, particularly in our government, because we're always on the news headline. You will never watch the news here in South Africa and not hear that billions and billions are missing. This and this is missing because this money should have gone to the development of youth. It's not there. This money should have gone to the prevention and response of gender-based violence. The money is not there because our politicians are so corrupt. They are so corrupt, and I will not shy away from calling them out for their corruption. Therefore, we also have a huge role as young people to play in politics to ensure that, we promote non-racialism. We have an issue here in South Africa of racism. Racism is a human right violation because it literally strips off one's dignity. It leaves you feeling like you are not important, like you are not an important contributor to this country's economy, to this country's social well-being of everyone. When you experience racism, you become, I guess, an advocate of anti-racism. So we have a huge responsibility as young people in South Africa, regardless of our age, of our race. I could be white, I could be pink, I could be yellow. We need to play a role in ensuring that we advocate for a very non-racial country, because our country still remains very divided. I mean, just the other day, the University of Stellenbosch was releasing a report because white students in Stellenbosch have gone on and on and on and on to continuously urinate on black students, either books or belongings or in. I mean, don't we have toilets anymore? I'm trying to understand what happened. Were people not taught where they need to pee if they needed to pee? But that also highlights the issue of racism. So as young people, we need to step up and address the issue of racism, thus promoting a non-racial South Africa. Economic prosperity, I mentioned this earlier. We definitely need to do that. We must be able to work together as young people in South Africa to open up economic opportunities to one another. When, like I said, whatever you learn, you must teach other people. And this is something I say to the communities where we work. If you're learning or you are an entrepreneur, teach the next person on how they themselves can be an entrepreneur. We must be able to transfer skills to one another as young people so that we can all flourish. There's nothing wrong with all of us being successful. There's nothing wrong with all of us flourishing and doing the things that need to be done in order for us to make sure that we keep our country, our constitutional democracy that so many people fought for, like I said, together, alive, and just well-spirited. So this also will definitely lead to, just good governance. So as I conclude this talk, I want to, encourage the youth once again and women in South Africa that as we head towards the 2024 general elections, let us please take a stand against the rampant government corruption that we are seeing every day. It is crippling our country. We are where we are today with the high rates of crime and unemployment and gender-based violence, mental health illnesses, and the lack of access to the facilities that are supposed to help women and children who are experiencing all of this violence, human rights violation. It's because of the government's corruption, and that is just the reality. So I just want to also, thank the Youth2Youth team. Thank you so much for, giving me this opportunity to come and, well, speak here and express my views on the various issues that we have touched on, particularly human rights as well in the age of enterprise. And I want to say that I have had this opportunity, and as I was writing my sort of TED talk, I then thought of how special or how close to my heart all of these topics are because of everything that myself personally I have gone through. Remember, my social justice activism started because I experienced human rights violations. And I always say to people when I speak to them that I think that we should not always wait for something to happen to us before we can do something about it. But because I experienced all of that violence and I was failed by the justice system, I have a much better understanding of what the next Zintle, who may be lying somewhere, bitten, bruised, and raped and not knowing what to do. I have a much better understanding of how they are feeling. So we shouldn't wait for that something terrible to happen to us before we can promote human rights, before we can advocate for human rights. We should get up now and go and start doing the work that needs to be done on the ground in order to ensure that we continue living in a democratic state where human rights are upheld by everyone, that is. And so I also want to take this opportunity and pay a tribute to my father, who sadly passed away on the 9th of November, 2022. This was 2 days ago. I want to say to him, Telez Amtik Ajwaka, Mazelen, you have been such an incredible part of my life. And when you died, I promise you, and I always hear people saying this, that a part of me died with. And it is so true because that is how I felt when I heard that he passed away. So I want to take this opportunity because I already recited all of this to him on the day that he passed away. He had a stroke, so he couldn't really talk, but I remember he just looked at me and he shook his head and he smiled and he just gave me a thumbs up. So I believe that he would have wanted me to do this today because I was busy contemplating if I should go ahead and, join this very important session. And I said to my mother, I think my father would want me to do this. I wanted to come here and speak so boldly so that I can make him proud. So I wanted to take this opportunity as I conclude and say thank you so much to him for being such an incredible man. We here in South Africa are lacking good men because men are abusing women, men are killing women, men are raping women, and men are leaving their children to just be raised by single mothers. And my father, he stepped up. He was quite an incredible man. And so I wanted to take this opportunity and as I close off to say, thank you so, so, so much, Papa, for everything that you have done to me. I thank you.
Oh, Zenjali, thank you so much for this powerful presentation. Thank you so much for bringing all these issues. And congratulations on your great work. I'm sure your father is so proud of you and the work that you do. It's so impactful. And thank you for reminding us about the importance of seeing the whole issue and how it's interconnected. Because there is no bits that are just there in the vacuum. You know, we all exist and we're all interconnected, and the importance of every single action is so powerful, and we really need to force ourselves to do something wherever we can do, to the extent we can do, but to improve and to make this small positive change, at least in our community. It's all going to add up, and it's all going to change it to the bigger scale. And on this note, talking about the impactful and powerful leaders like yourself, I would like to introduce you Fitumet Sepule, who is a social entrepreneur with ventures in this technology and nonprofit sector. She's the co-founder and chief executive officer of Legal Standpoint, an app-centered legal tech startup working to democratize legal education and services, in recognition of which she was named as the change maker of the year. So please, Gitimice, please join us for this beautiful discussion. We'd like to hear your story.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much to the Y2Y team for having me. I was tempted to say good afternoon, but I think we're all tuning in from different parts of the world. I'm currently joining in from Lusaka, Zambia. So I'll just say hi to everyone. It's really great to be here. I've had quite a few speaking engagements recently, but there's really something so exciting and invigorating about connecting and exchanging ideas with other young people. I think young people are really innovative, and we're at the forefront of coming up with innovations that are really changing the world. So it's really such a pleasure to be here. My name is Kidumete Bule, as Saida just mentioned, and I am an award-winning social entrepreneur. I have been part of the entrepreneurship ecosystem for 10 years now in different capacities, as a startup founder, as a fellow of the Alan Gray Opus Foundation, which is an entrepreneurial development program that bets early on young people who can be high impact entrepreneurial leaders. I have worked in another notably youth black led startup, and